Hello and welcome to New Frontiers on CCTV International. I'm Ji Xiaojun in Beijing, and today we're going to be talking about Confucius, the philosopher who is recognized the world over as a symbol of Chinese culture. For thousands of years, Confucianism has been at the heart of traditional Chinese culture, exerting a powerful influence over virtually every aspect of Chinese life. Well, 2,000 years ago, at the time of the Spring and Autumn and Warring States period, a number of other schools of thought emerged. But what was it about that time that encouraged so much philosophical thought? And in today's program, we're going to find out that.
More than 2,000 years ago, a group of highly learned Chinese scholars was to have a major impact on Chinese culture from that time to the present day. These passionate, bold men examined the society, politics, economics and culture of their time and developed theoretical and practical approaches to these areas in an effort to fashion a more ideal society. The intellectual movement they launched, a milestone in human culture, initiated a Chinese Age of Reason, during which the intellectual and cultural currents of Chinese civilization were able to spring forth in a stream that has flowed without interruption to the present day. Giving a general a war horse is like giving him wings. 2,700 years ago, war horses like these ones witnessed fierce battles during extensive military campaigns. The 600 war horses buried in the tomb of King Jinggung of the state of Qi served the last potentate of the Qi dynasty during the spring and autumn period. They were part of a great army that controlled China's central plains 2,700 years ago. In the last years of the Western Zhou dynasty, the monarchs of all the dynasty's vassal states wished to rule a well-governed nation with an orderly society based on their own ideals. And with this as the aim, vast changes began to take place in the political, economic and social order. This period of adjustment lasted from 770 BC to 221 BC, the early part of which is known as the Spring and Autumn period, the latter part, the Warring States period. During this period of about 550 years, all the vassal states, of which there were many, underwent profound economic and cultural changes, and eventually 5 powerful states emerged, the states of Qi, Jin, Qin, Chu, and Wu, the 5 great powers of the Spring and Autumn period. Later, these evolved into the 7 warring states of what is known as the Warring States period, the states of Chu, Han, Qi, Qin, Wei, Yan, and Zhao. Throughout this long period of profound change, the direction China was heading in remained unclear, and it was during this time of uncertainty that a number of outstanding thinkers emerged.
在公元前500年前后吧，这个时候在世界上不同的地区出现了伟大的思想家。比方在希腊就出现了 这个苏格拉底、柏拉图这样一些大的思想家。在印度就出现了释迦牟尼这样伟大的思想家。在以色列这个地区就出现了当时犹太教的先知，就是旧约圣经这一部分。那么在中国就出现了老子和孔子等等。这些思想家的思想影响了人类社会2000多年，是人类社会宝贵的思想财富。
It was at this time that China entered a period of remarkable intellectual and cultural achievement, during which numerous schools of thought prospered and contended with each other. Of these, the people known as Ru, who we now refer to as Confucians, had the greatest vitality.
儒这个字是很早的字，最早呢，它是指一种对礼仪有专门了解的一个专业的人才，当时叫做术士，有术的人，那么就相当于现在的所谓这个专业的司仪一样，它是一种专业的职务。
One day, near the end of the spring and autumn period, an unknown youth weary from a long journey from his home state of Lu in present-day Shandong province arrived in the city of Luoyi, now known as Luoyang, the capital of the Eastern Zhou dynasty. This young man would later become known throughout the entire world by the name Confucius. Confucius' given name was Qiu, and he was also called Zhongni. He had studied a wide variety of subjects under a number of teachers, and he had a boundless enthusiasm for the rites and ceremonies of the Zhou dynasty. In his youth, Confucius had studied tirelessly, eagerly devouring large numbers of ancient texts. He advocated cultivating both the body and the mind, and he was more than happy to answer questions about rites and ceremonies from people who had come from miles around. Confucius had come to firmly believe that the only way to maintain social order and stability was to strictly observe the system of rites and music of the Western Zhou dynasty, and he had heard that in Luoyang there was a great scholar of outstanding character with vast knowledge of these rites and of music. He had come to Luoyang to find this scholar and study under him.
When three people are together, one of them will be my teacher. This is one of Confucius' better-known sayings, and it shows that even the great sage was willing to learn. As for this other scholar in Luoyang, who was he, and what would Confucius learn from him?
That great scholar was none other than Lao Tzu, who at the time held the position of keeper of the archives of the Zhou court. Lao Tzu, whose surname was Li and whose given name was Er, but who was also known as Lao Dan, was a man of vast learning to whom numerous young scholars came to seek guidance. When he first met Confucius, Lao Tzu enthusiastically took the young scholar to a number of centers that had been established by the various schools of thought to spread their views. And while there, Confucius personally watched the rites and ceremonies. Confucius deeply admired Lao Tzu and thought of him as a dragon in the clouds, whose head you can see, but whose tail you cannot. After he returned to the state of Lu, Confucius codified the rites of the Zhou dynasty. At a time when conflicts between quarreling princes threatened to tear apart the social fabric of the nation, he drew up a blueprint expressing his vision of an ideal world, one in which the rites and music of the Western Zhou would be revered. At the core of his vision for the foundations of society was harmonious family relations grounded on filial piety. At the same time, virtuous rule would be the basis for good government, while the aim of foreign policy would be to ensure that all states could live together in harmony. Ultimately, his system of thought centered on achieving complete harmony between the ways of heaven and the ways of man.
孔子认为这个大同社会，它应该是 天下为公的社会，不是为私的社会，它是一个天下为公的社会，它是一个选贤举能的社会，就是怎么样来，作为统治者或者作为这个领导者呢，他应该是贤能的这个人来，做这个领导者。他是一个大家都能够生活美好的社会，而且这个社会是老吾老以及人之老，幼吾幼以及人之幼的社会，就是你爱自己的亲人，那么同时也应该爱别人的亲人。
Confucius was the founder of a new school of thought that would eventually become known as Confucianism, a great intellectual force that was to preserve social stability and order in China for 2,000 years by placing overriding importance on the value of harmony.
"因为国家与国家之间的文化、价值观念等等很可能是不同的，对不对？那么怎么办啊？那我们应该按照这和而不同的原则来做，就是我们尽管有所不同，但是我们可以和谐相处，那这样就可以避免战争，可避免冲突。
Confucius was a man with a strong sense of social responsibility and justice, and this led him to travel around the country spreading his views on government and what he believed to be proper conduct. Lao Tzu, the man Confucius most admired, also set out on a long journey, but his was one of a very different sort. He disappeared into the wilderness, never to be seen again. This is Hangu Pass, located in Lingbao, Henan Province. In Chinese history, Hangu Pass was a highly strategic point, as any prince who wanted to conquer the nation had to lead his troops through the pass to gain control of the central plains. Legend has it that while on duty, Yin Qi, the commander of Hangu Pass, suddenly saw a purple mist approaching from the east. Thinking this mist signaled the approach of some dignitary, he went out to meet the important visitor, and the person he saw was Lao Tzu with his long flowing white beard, slowly riding towards him on an ox. Yin Shi treated Lao Tzu as an honored guest and stayed up all night asking him questions. He then urged Lao Tzu to stay on a while until Lao Tzu had taught him to follow the natural course of events in the world. After repeated urgings, he convinced Lao Tzu to commit to paper his insights into how states rise and fall and how people flourish or perish in accordance with the principles of Tao and De. The small volumes of writings Lao Tzu left behind was comprised of just 5,000 words, and after Lao Tzu went through the pass, he disappeared forever. Later, this small volume, now known as the Lao Tzu of the Tao De Jing, became the inspiration for a new school of thought known as Taoism. Taoism is centered around the idea of letting nature take its course.
"认为所有的事情必须按照这个自然的原则，清静无为的让它进行自然的发展，不要人为的加以干预，不要人为的加以引导，不要人为的去给它规定一些方向，因为这就是老子所说的治大国让烹小鲜。老子他认为治理大国就像做一锅鲜美的小鱼的鱼汤一样。
Of all the ancient schools of thought, Confucianism and Taoism have had the greatest impact on traditional Chinese culture. However, these two schools of thought are essentially quite different from each other. Even so, together they laid the foundation for traditional Chinese culture.
Followers of Taoism also regard another volume as a sacred text, the Zhuangzi. This work was written by Zhuangzi, a Taoist who lived a few centuries after Lao Tzu and who rejected conformity to social conventions. When the monarch of Chu heard of Zhuangzi's fame, he ceremoniously invited him to accept a position in his court. But Zhuangzi adamantly refused, feeling that if he accepted this position, he would end up living the life of a bird in a gilded cage. In contrast with Lao Tzu's restrained and accommodating character, Zhuangzi was an extrovert with an adventurous spirit who lived an unfettered life and let his spirit roam freely. He dreamed of living like a bird that soared high in the sky and flew to distant lands, as depicted in the first chapter of the Zhuangzi, which is entitled Wandering Far and Wide. In this chapter, he laments the readiness of the people to waste their precious time on earth pursuing fame and fortune, which are fleeting. Zhuangzi's philosophy centers on the art of life, and people today still use his wisdom in their daily lives. Many aphorisms widely used today come directly or indirectly from the Zhuangzi. There is, life is over in a flash, and when life gives you a lemon, make lemonade. Zhuangzi watched people struggling to become prosperous only to become enslaved by their possessions. So he advocated a return to nature and having a free and unfettered spirit. An important characteristic of Taoism is the great emphasis it places on the life of the individual. Taoism teaches that a person's life is of far greater value than fame, fortune, or any material possessions. Zhuangzi's thinking carries on themes first introduced by Lao Tzu, and for more than 2,000 years, people have taken the Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi as the twin pillars of Taoist philosophy.
所以说，儒家呢，他的境界怀抱的一种境界是内圣外王啊，将他所达到的最高境界是立功立言立德，惜贤惜圣惜天，是吧？这是作为一个读书人，这个儒家非常高的，这是一生的追求吧，可以说是。而道家不是这样，道家呢追求内心的感受和那种享受，他是非常注意的是这个东西，而所以说他往往道家被用于养生。
In order to spread the culture of the rites and music of the Western Zhou dynasty and to turn his ideal that benevolence means loving others into a reality, Confucius traveled with his entourage of around 70 disciples to most of the states on the Central Plains. It was at this time that another wise man appeared on the stage, and he too traveled from state to state seeking official support. Mo Tzu, the founder of Morism, advocated universal love and condemnation of offensive warfare. His fame quickly grew to rival that of Confucius, to the point where the influence of Morism was eventually on a par with that of Confucianism. Mo Tzu, whose given name was Di, was a man of vast knowledge who was talented in many fields, and he was also an expert in fortifying cities in times of war. History records that when the ruler of Chu had a staircase to the clouds built by Gung Shu Ban in preparation for attacking the state of Sung, Mo Tzu raced across the country, crossing countless rivers and mountains to reach Jiangling, the capital of Chu, to dissuade the ruler from going ahead with his plans for war.
墨子赶到了楚国的都城以后，紧急拜见楚王， 为了劝阻楚王呢，墨子和公输班呢就当着楚王的面摆开了沙盘，在沙盘上演习攻防。公输班呢用他发明的云梯，用9种办法攻城；墨子呢就用他发明的守城的器械，用9种办法来加以抵抗。最后公输班呢失败了，楚王终于放弃了攻打宋国的计划。
The story of how Maozi saved Song from attack, as recorded in the Maozi, is one that not only vividly reveals Maozi's courage and wisdom, but also provides us with inspiration in the present age. As Maozi saw it, there was no need for 2 hostile countries to settle their dispute on the battlefield. If instead their strategists and engineers met to compare their offensive and defensive weapons, they could determine who would win the war and award victory to that party without fighting. This would save a lot of blood and needless sacrifice.
“墨家”是一个代表劳动人民，特别是手工业者利益的一个学术派别。他们反对剥削，反对不劳而获，主张勤劳致富。他们的理想是国家和国家之间平等相处，聪明智慧的人要启迪那些愚钝的人，地位高的人要同情和帮助地位低的人，这样呢，来实现一个天下之人皆相爱、互利、互助的这样一个和谐社会。
The Mohists advocated equality and universal love, and they opposed formalism and war. Maozi's condemnation of offensive warfare expressed a powerful hope for peace, and this was at the very time, coincidentally, that the study of the art of war had begun in earnest. Those studying the art of war and writing treatises on it belonged to the school of the military, which taught that war was inevitable, yet which also opposed the excessive use of force and considered the defeat of an enemy without fighting a battle the epitome of military art. State leaders considered recruiting advisors from among the ranks of the school of the military as a matter of great importance, as a single wrong strategic decision could bring a state to ruins. The most famous member of the school of the military was Sun Tzu, who wrote the famous treatise The Arts of War. The Art of War is a manual on military strategy that is still widely read today.
“兵家”是一个源远流长的这么一个学派，它从战争开始，它就同时出现了。那么，我们今天老是说《孙子兵法》是中国第一部兵书，这个概念是错的。《孙子兵法》前面还有兵书，无非是没有留下来。我们今天能看到的第一部兵书是《孙子兵法》。
The Art of War by Sun Tzu is one of the oldest books on military strategy in the world. Perhaps, though, we do it an injustice by describing it as a book of military strategy because its scope is much wider. In many aspects, it is a philosophical work. In this sense, Sun Tzu was following in the tradition established by the likes of Confucius and Lao Tzu. Thank you for staying with us on New Frontiers and tuning in again next time when we'll tell you more about the ancient schools of thought in China. I'm Ji Xiaojun from CCTV International. Bye for now.